Wes Anderson is unarguably one of the most imaginative directors working on the scene today. He's made stuff such as Fantastic Mr. Fox, The Life Aquatic, and The Grand Budapest Hotel, and The Isle of Dogs is his latest endeavor, his second stop-motion film. Stop-motion is a big thing to kind of break into. It takes a lot more manpower and hours to go into than regular animation, and there's something very intimate about the type of storytelling that it allows you to perceive. Generally, a stop-motion film means that you were really passionate about the project, and that this is what you wanted to make, and it needed to be this for a specific reason. I think Wes Anderson always approaches his films with this level of, oh, I have the exact image of what I'm making in my head, and that's what's going to be on the screen. And he does that, but he has this weird way of making dialogue where everybody talks like him, but if the actor can bring their own personality into the light, it makes it into its own character. Like, everybody talks in this stilted, very one-tone way, but if you can bring out the emotions somehow, then you've achieved something great, and I'm sure Wes Anderson loves you for that. But this movie had quite a few problems. I'm not going to say I hated it, because I didn't. I'm very glad I went to see this one, actually. This is probably, as of right now, the best movie I've reviewed in this series. But Wes Anderson has a knack for going too far. In this movie, you meet this band of dogs. What are their names? The dogs are named Chief, Rex, Duke, what else? King, and Boss. So those are our main group of dogs that we're following through this entire story. They're played by Bryan Cranston, Jeff Goldblum, Edward Norton, the fuck else? Bob Baldwin, and Bill Murray. The dogs all were basically the same, except for Bryan Cranston. As usual, did a really good job in this, just bringing out his own emotion and putting himself into the character. But I really can't say that for any of the other English-speaking characters, of which there were very few. This film does an amazing job of not talking down to you, and it does that through only allowing the dogs and one or two other characters to speak English. And all of the other humans speak Japanese, and the way that we're generally delivered their dialogue is through an English-speaking character translating it, and then making it so that we're on board with them. Occasionally it'll do subtitles, or occasionally it'll do visuals, but a majority of the time it's the characters telling it directly to us. And I thought that was very cool, very inventive. But the dogs all spoke English throughout the entire thing, and the big problem there is that none of them were bringing a new kind of light to the characters and making them feel unique. You could have switched around the dogs' name tags and I wouldn't have noticed. You could have started calling one another name, and it would have been exactly the same. The only one who's a unique dog is Bryan Cranston's Chief. Even like the dogs who aren't really in the movie, they're very bland, and you don't really get to know a lot about them. There's this like seeing dog it was pretty funny. They can they see the future by watching TV, and then being able to understand the Japanese that's being broadcasted. And there's like this big snow rescue dog with like a thing on its neck filled with whiskey. Then there's the Scarlett Johansson dog who just didn't need to be in the film. It was interesting. There were a lot of aspects of this that were unnecessary, especially with the dogs. You could have focused on our main pack of dogs and had the other dogs as background or an afterthought, because a majority of it just feels forced. The big highlight of this film is the Japanese characters who, no matter what, are always speaking Japanese. And just because they're speaking Japanese, they never really feel like Wes Anderson is delivering their dialogue. I don't know what they're actually saying, because I don't speak Japanese, but if you were to just listen to it, they have genuine emotion coming from it, and they feel like they're acting much more than everyone else in the movie. All of the dogs, they're really talking in this monotone that's just boring and makes the characters uninteresting, and you don't get into them enough. So the big thing about this film is, the main plot is the main pack of dogs helping this young boy named Atari trying to find his dog that was sent to this island. And Chief is the only dog opposing all of this, and he says, oh, I don't want to do this. And his big character throughout the... Spoilers. I'm going to say that. I never say that because I don't generally care. But this one I think you should go see. So click off, go see it, come back. Whoever didn't click off, it's their loss. So Bryan Cranston's character of Duke his entire character arc is that he was a stray dog who never felt like obedience was what dogs actually needed and they should roam free and be able to do whatever they wanted. But by the end of the movie, he's a domesticated security dog for Atari who becomes the mayor, which I'll get to when I talk about the plot. But the character for that kind of felt weird because a majority of it is set up as he's the loner, he wants to go against all of this, he wants to be his own dog, or his own man if we were relating to us. But it just doesn't work out that way. It works out that he's gonna become this kid's dog, and it kind of felt like a 180 for the character, especially considering the way that they had him bond was they threw a stick, and then like a minute-long speed-up, he got washed off. And then the kid gave him a biscuit, like a dog biscuit, which he had never had in his life. That little interaction came to a conclusion in that the dog now loved the kid, which felt very out of character and just kind of weird, like a weird direction to go in. Throughout the entire thing, there are only two English-speaking humans, and that's Lucy, the foreign exchange student, and Frances McDormand's translator character, and one of which is from Ohio, and I'm guessing you can tell why the other one speaks English. But they did okay. I wouldn't say that they did a bad job. I would say that Lucy is an odd character to have in it, where more power could have been given to someone else, whose name I don't know. So let's break this up into completely pointless chapters like how the movie does. So here's chapter 1, the backstory. So in the distant past, dogs were free to go anywhere they wanted. They would roam all over the lands. But the nearby Kobayashi clan, which was the humans in Japan at the time, decided that these dogs needed to be extinct. They loved cats, and they thought dogs were the worst plague on Earth. So a huge war erupted between the dogs and the Kobayashi clan. And it ended in this one boy, the Silver Samurai kid, coming out and saving all of the dogs and convincing them that they needed to domesticate the dogs. This backstory then directly mirrors the main plot, which I'll get to in a minute, and it's very unsubtle. Not subtle. Unsubtle's not a word. So over time, the dogs get to grow back their population and become man's best friend. Main plot, part 1. 20 years in the future, from 2018, a virus has broken out in Japan called dog flu. And basically it gives you all of these conditions to dogs that make them like shake, lose weight, like sneeze a lot. But it isn't affecting humans yet, and people are afraid it's going to start affecting humans. So, Mayor Kobayashi, the technical bad guy of the film, makes a decree that all dogs must be sent off to Trash Island to live in exile. Mayor Kobayashi, throughout this entire thing, is trying to pursue Atari, who is trying to get back his dog Spot, and Atari is his nephew. And the reason he's trying to get back Spot is because he was appointed as the guard dog to Atari when he was very injured, and they just grew a nice bond. But Mayor Kobayashi decided that in the best interest of the people, it would be nice to show them that yes, we fully support this Isle of Dogs idea. I'll show you by sending my own dog off first. That'll definitely show everyone that I really mean what I mean. So that, of course, upsets Atari. The more interesting backstory. Much later in the film, I'm talking in the last act, we learn Spots' story. And Spots was sent there and he was trapped in his cage because people couldn't open the lock. And he was talking to this dog who was able to get out of his cage, and they were discussing this clan who lived on the island that were supposedly cannibal dogs. I hope my camera doesn't die. Please don't die, camera. You need to just make it through this video. They talk about the dogs, and this makes Spots kind of afraid of them. But the dude says, oh, you'll be safe. You're in this cage. You'll probably die of starvation first. Then at night, the tribe comes and kidnaps him and takes him to their colony. Spots, of course, is very afraid and decides to kind of interview them and says, "Oh, why are you doing this?" And they're like, "We only ate one dog, and that was to put him out of his misery." So they let Spots out, and over time, Spots finds love there and becomes their new leader. Now, in my opinion, that would have been a much more interesting movie to watch. What we get is a basic travel story where you got people right on your heels, even though you never feel like they're right on your heels. Main plot, part 2. We meet our main group of dogs, which I discussed earlier. They're all living in one pack who kind of work in a democracy so that the majority vote decides what they're going to do. And they witness Atari's plane coming in and crashing to the ground. They then decide they're going to help him out and try and help him find his lost dog Spots. Mayor Kobayashi has appointed a police task force to try and find Atari, and they have these new robot dogs that have the ability to just kill anything. Luckily they escape because it's not a very big threat, but it's a threat nonetheless. And they go through this island, meeting many dogs along the way, who are all uninteresting and not good characters, until at one point, Chief and Atari, who hate each other, get separated from the rest of the group of dogs who are fans of Atari. Now, those dogs could have been gone from the rest of the movie and absolutely nothing would have changed, but they come back later and it was stupid. And this is the segment where you see Chief and Atari bond, and it's stupid and it makes no sense. Then they get on a bridge where they're about to be able to cross the gap to get to Spots, and they get cornered by the non-threatening police again. But this time, Spots runs out with his army of dogs and rescues them and makes them all jump into the river, and just the river shotguns them back to their hideout. Here's where we learn what Spots has been doing, and we learn that Spots wants to stay. So Bryan Cranston's Chief is super pissed because this kid has just been trying his hardest to find his dog and get him back, and he doesn't want to go. While they're here, they get a message from an owl that tells them all of the other dogs on the island have been rounded up, and they're going to be basically put in gas chambers like the Holocaust. They decide that what they're going to do is, with all of the dogs that they have, they're going to go back into the city, because this night is a mayoral re-election night, and they're going to go and preach their message to save all the dogs. They get there in time, they get the mayor to see the error of his ways, and he makes the decree go away, and the dogs are safe. But the police are still trying to apprehend Atari, and we find out that the mayor's assistant is actually really trying to still kill the dogs. A huge fight breaks out, ending in Spots getting mortally injured and Atari sustaining major brain damage. So the mayor decides that he will help get the kid all of the medical attention he needs, and then he even donates a kidney, which his kidney failed, and it's just a super kind of touching moment. And then you find out that the fucking kid gets elected mayor for no reason. There's like a loophole that because he did it on election night, that the kid gets to be mayor even though he's 12, which, if Japan in the future is letting 12-year-olds run their stuff, I don't know how they're gonna function. In the end, we do learn that Spots is okay, and Chief has become his new guard dog, which is stupid and unexpected, and he falls in love with Scarlett Johansson, which again, is a waste of time. Subplot A, science. So when Mayor Kobayashi was telling the world about his new decree to send all the dogs off to the Isle, a man stepped forward on the stage saying that in 6 months he could have the serum ready to cure all of the dogs. Sure enough, the movie takes place 6 months from that event, and 6 months from that event, he's made the cure. Everybody's gonna be fine, but they cover it up. They kill the dude, and they hide his sample so that they can keep the dogs there and they won't have to take repercussions for their actions. This leads us to Subplot B, School Paper, where we find the most useless character in the film, Lucy. She's a foreign exchange student who's there to kind of dispense exposition and allow for us to follow what's going on. She knows that there's a cover-up going on, and she goes on this quest that takes about 10 minutes of total screen time to find what happened, and she does, and she finds the cure. And with this cure, she takes it when Atari is preaching his beliefs about the dogs, and says, here's the cure, and here's how it works. And it works perfectly, and everybody uses it, and then all the dogs are back. So she could have, the big gripe that I have with that is her character could have been replaced with this lady scientist who was there the whole time, kind of assisting in making the cure, and it would have been a very nice kind of arc for her to go from helping to completely crashing because of the death of who I assumed was her love, the scientist dude, to then revealing to the world that they have the stuff and they can cure everyone. So as I said earlier, animation is really hard to pull off. Wes Anderson, this is the second animated film that he's made, but he has quite that knack for giving it so much panache and just astoundment. I freaking love the Wes Anderson style of stop motion. It's beautiful and unique, and I really have never seen anything like it. It brings so much character to the screen, and you can see how much detail and how much work goes into everything. Plus, like, they're moving so many things on the screen at a time, and it's just spectacular. What's going on with your memory card? I don't know what this means. Are you still recording? Hello? The card's full. Okay, we'll be back. It's been several hours. About 2. I let the camera charge to full. I got the thing taken. Let's just get back to the review. So where I left off, I was talking about how stop-motion animation is a very intimate form of filmmaking, and it really just grabs you and takes you into the film more than anything else I've ever seen. I truly believe that it requires so much work to fully pull off stop motion, and just every little detail took hours and hours. There was one segment in this where like they were chopping up sushi. It took them 8 months. That's incredible. That dedication to the craft. And I really have to commend them on that. And the animation did turn out beautiful. The background, the production design, it was some of the best I've ever seen. A lot of people have been praising the music in this. I thought the music was very good, but it got a bit repetitive for me. The song I used in the beginning of this video was used a collective 4 or 5 times in the film, and I really think that it should have been used a lot less, because it feels like a very special song that's just supposed to signify something that maybe something in the normal score couldn't do. Maybe it's supposed to show something intense or really introduce us to a new character, but it was just used randomly, and I thought it could have been used better and been really special. Overall, I think Isle of Dogs is super worth seeing one time. It has some special moments and some really just terrible moments that come together to form something that's a bit strange and out there, but still enjoyable in part. I would recommend you go see it, but I give this movie a 6 out of 10. Go see it once, go enjoy it, maybe see it with some friends, some family, just have a nice time. I don't think anyone's going to be buying this anytime soon, but I'm really interested to see what Wes Anderson's going to make next. It's always a surprise with him, and who knows, maybe the next one will be even weirder.